Welcome back to this Queen the Greatest special, in which Brian May and Roger Taylor guide us through the story of Queen 1. It's spring 1972, and Queen were bursting with belief, energy and songs, but still searching for that opportunity to show the world what they were capable of. Having signed a management deal with Trident, the band were now finally in a position to start recording their first album, although the timings of those sessions proved to be quite erratic.
It was tough in the beginning, yeah, but then we did eventually coalesce in the studio, and we were really working off-peak studio hours, really when the studio was free, because our management owned the studio, which was Trident Studios, which was regarded as the sort of studio of the moment in the 70s. But we were there on the most, we'd arrive at 3 in the morning and then go on, for all the hours that we could grab.
It was very tough because we never knew when we were going to get back in there. Tapes got jumbled up and kind of lost, and there was a discontinuity. Sometimes we had to have a different engineer who didn't realise what we'd done before. It was really a kind of mess. It was a hodgepodge. Difficult to hold it together. They were tough times.
The important thing was, Queen were in the studio and finally recording their first album. And it became apparent that the time and effort already put into developing as a band had not been wasted.
I think by the time we got into the studio, we were quite well formed. We really had rehearsed ourselves to death. In spite of the fact we were all doing sort of other jobs and student things, we devoted a lot of time to it, a lot of care. We were well rehearsed. We were sort of even over rehearsed possibly. So I think, and we were used to working together. Now I think we hit the ground pretty much running.
Yet despite their preparations and confidence, working in a professional studio still took a bit of getting used to.
Are you ready?
Right.
Okay. Shh.
Right, okay, this is take 8, take 8. Okay, rolling.
You're so loud. Right. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4.
What's the timing?
It's speeding up, isn't it?
No.
So I can't hear the bass drum at all.
We have some more drums.
Sounds like thunder.
Well, we were learning everything. We'd never had a producer before. So then we had two. We had John Anthony, and then we had Roy Baker. Roy was a little more set in his ways. He was quite hard and quite bossy in the studio.
And then there's us, the precocious boys who've already made something that they think is rather good in Delane Lee. So we're pushing to get things done our way. Unfortunately, we don't really succeed because there's a whole weight of pressure behind John Anthony and Roy Baker. The pressure is from this TAP company who have a reputation in the world for their sound, their studio sound, particularly their drum sound. The Trident drum sound was something which was sort of lauded in the world. It wasn't our thing at all. Nevertheless, we were pressured into doing it their way. And I remember Roy saying, "Don't worry, Neddy, don't worry, we'll fix it all in the mix." But of course, that's never going to happen.
Determined to have as much influence as possible on the final album, all 4 members of the band were heavily involved in the mixing process.
There would be 6 pairs of hands on the mix. It would all be done live, And then we used to do a lot of tape phasing. There'd be 4 reel-to-reel tape recorders at the back, and you get the tape phasing. It's a complicated process. And we'd literally do it by hand, and then we'd be working the desk. Each person would have their area of the desk to work, and it was quite exciting actually doing the mixes. Yeah.
I think us as a band, I think we came through. I think the energy and the creative power actually got onto tape. I mean, if we'd been completely depressed about it, you would know. I think we had enough kind of passion and belief and indulgence to see through that stuff and realise that even though the sounds weren't quite what we wanted, we still had our energy and our vibe.
Eventually, the album was completed, and on July 13th, 1973, while Queen prepared for a gig at St Mary's College in Basingstoke, the Queen album was released. But with many journalists confused as to who Queen were and what they were about, the release was met by a muted response. Or as Roger describes it,
a tsunami of nothing. Yeah. Well, I suppose it was a bit dispiriting, but I think we were concentrating then on being a live act. To give the management credit, and a guy that they had hired called Jack Nelson, an American, to be our sort of day-to-day proper manager. He made us go down. We had the theatre at the end of the pier in Herne Bay, of all places, in the middle of the winter, which was a desolate place to be for a week or two. I think we were just solidly rehearsing our live act here.
Tell you what helped, we looked at some of the reviews for the Led Zeppelin albums that had been out at that time, some of which were appallingly bad, and we thought, well, if they can run these people down, we shouldn't be too worried about being run down ourselves. Being a band is a great help. I think if I'd been a solo artist, I think I might have laid on the floor and cried. It was bad, but we had the four of us, and it's like, screw these guys, we know what we're doing. That saved us. The other thing that saved us was suddenly, I think from the Imperial College show onwards, we were aware that we had an audience. Once we had that first album out, we had an audience who understood us and were really behind us. There's suddenly momentum coming in from outside, and that's incredibly helpful. That really gives you the energy you need. So we had internal energy and we had external energy coming to us from what became the Queen fans, which is incredible.
We went out with the Mott the Hoople tour. That was great. That made us a lot of followers. And we converted a lot of people like that. So it felt like something was happening, although not massive commercially, you know. Yeah. It was very satisfying about 4 albums later, when Night at the Opera was kind of riding high. All those early albums, especially the first one, came in and went gold, you know, that was really satisfying. Actually see it in print in the sort of top 20, you know.
And although it's been a long time coming, the opportunity to revisit this album is one that Roger and Brian have really cherished.
Essentially, with the Queen 1 box set, we've made the actual album sound the way we wanted it to sound. We've just basically, using the techniques that we have now, we've just made the drums sound like they should sound, and the overall sound of it is better. The mix is better, and obviously now we've reworked on it, and I think we've greatly improved it. And Brian and I thought it a good idea to clarify exactly what it was by calling it Queen 1. So it is Queen 1.
So it's been amazing to go back into those tapes and build them, to rebuild them, so they have the sounds that we had in our heads at the time. And this is all 4 of us. It's not just me or just Rog, you know, it's Freddie very much, John very much. We always thought, in all these years, and it's been such a long time, we always thought, wouldn't it be great if we could go back to that first album and make it sound the way that we wanted it to sound at the time. So now we did it. I'm excited. I'm very excited.